Okay, let's see. Sound. All right, my name is Frans Rosén. I'm going to talk about the smorgasbord of web app hacking. And that means doing bug bounties as a developer. I like my profile pic so much. I actually asked a bunch of people outside of Sweden why I had this pic. And they were like, yeah, you're hacking stuff and you're dressed as a ninja. And I was like, no, it's cold in Sweden. We have ice. Like, if you look at my eyebrows, I have ice in my eyebrows, like 35 minus. I work as a knowledge advisor at a company called Detectify. Detectify does web monitoring for security. And that means that we look for vulnerabilities and we try to find if you're vulnerable to something, scanning your website after them. And being a knowledge advisor basically means that I tend to do a lot of research around vulnerabilities that is out there for many companies or websites, and try to put that knowledge into the product and make it better all the time. And it could be like issues specific to Node, it could be issues specific to Ruby on Rails, PHP, whatever. So we try to do them all. Do anybody know about a company called HackerOne? Like 10 people here. That's amazing. That's a promille. All right, so HackerOne is a marketplace combining or connecting companies with security people all over the world. And I'll get to more details about that. So I'm in security. How did I get here? That's the first point. How I started, basically. And I'm going to tell you also about what do I actually do. And I'm going to tell you about some vulnerability stories as well. Also trying to explain a little bit how to hack in Vegas, which is kind of fun. So it started for me 2012, almost 2013, because PayPal sent out an email, a newsletter, saying that we're going to pay you money if you find a security vulnerability in PayPal. And the only thing that you need to do is to send us an email with the vulnerability information, and we're going to get back to you. If it's a valid thing, we're going to pay you money. And I had a bunch of friends back in that days. I did not work with security. I was a developer, only developing things. So I had some friends actually doing security stuff, and I asked them, like, what can I look for? What should I do? And they showed me some stuff with like JavaScript, cross-site scripting attacks, like some payloads. Like, try and look for these. Like, that's one way to do it. And I registered an account at PayPal, and I registered a merchant account at PayPal, and I just tried passing that through everything and just like try to find all the things in that system. And suddenly I see like at one place I can like run JavaScript inside PayPal. And I figured that is not supposed to be there, because you could also send that to someone and it will trigger for them and you can like do some bad stuff with it. And I asked my friends, like, is this a vulnerability? And they're like, hell yeah, it is. Like, that's a good one. Like, it actually is exploitable. So I sent an email to PayPal about the vulnerability. I did some screenshots, showed them how to do it, and I waited. And I think I waited for like 2 months or something. And then I get an email saying that, hey, it's PayPal here. What's your PayPal address? We want to send you $750. And that's an email you throw away. Like, you don't know. No. You cannot fool me with this. So, but this was actually true. This was actually PayPal asking me for my PayPal address because they want to send me $750. And that made me go total mental, because I realized that there were so many companies doing the same thing. There were so many companies, so I just freaked out. I just started hacking all these companies. And the thing was, not all of them were actually paying out money. But for me, it didn't matter. Like, I just wanted to try it out, see what happened. I've never had so many T-shirts in my life as during this time. I had like one different T-shirt for one different company every day for like a couple of months or something. I had so many T-shirts. So it went a little bit too far. Me and my girlfriend went to Thailand back in those days, and I didn't bring any laptop, of course. Like, taking the girlfriend to Thailand and bringing the laptop is not a good sign. But the thing was, I was reading Twitter on the hotel Wi-Fi on my iPhone, and one of these companies launched their bug bounty program. And I was like, I can't miss this. Like, all my friends is like, yay, let's look for stuff. And I'm like, I want as well. So I downloaded a bookmarklet that made me view the source on an iPhone. And I spent the whole night in Thailand sending them iPhone screenshots with 22 vulnerabilities, different ones. And like, sorry for print screening this on an iPhone, but I'm on a vacation in Thailand. But like, what happened was that I spent the whole night. I woke up, I went to bed early in the morning in Thailand, and I woke up in the evening, and I had 2 emails. And 2 emails with $4,000 in it. Because not only did this company validate that the bugs were actually there, they actually went in and patched them during my sleep, and also rewarded me for the bugs. And I was like, holy shit, this is actually something huge, and this is going to be a big thing. But how it actually started back in the days was 15 years ago. When I was 15, I knew computers, I know what a shockwave game was, and Frans, which is a breakfast cereal company in Sweden, was launching a competition with a shockwave game. And this shockwave game basically was built up by a puzzle, and you had to place this puzzle in a specific amount of time, and you got a specific amount of points, and then you submitted those points to Frans. And what happened was, in the technical specification of this was that as soon as the game was done, you were sent to a URL with a get parameter called points. So I thought, let's change those points to something better, because I suck at puzzles. The day after, turns out I was the winner, and I got 1,000 kroner. And I was like, yes. And the only thing was that you could only win once a day. So I went to my friend Joel. Joel, could I borrow your name? You get 500 kroners if we win tomorrow. And I entered his name, and I entered the points to it, and the day after, he won 1,000 kroner. 500 for me, 500 for him. And I was like, this works. Björn, my other friend, can I borrow your name? You get $500 if you win. I did it the same thing. Day after that, he wins. So suddenly I have 2,000 kroner for 3 days. The day after that, the game closes indefinitely. Never opens again. Because somebody was getting so much points in this game, it was something weird with it. Something really weird. So what did I do today? What do we actually do? Like, what do I physically do to actually work with this? So all these marketplaces are, like, there's a bunch of people like me. Like, I like to poke at systems that is not built by me. I like to poke at systems built by me as well, but I also enjoy poking at other people's systems. And I don't enjoy go to jail. So what happened is that there's a bunch of marketplaces out there that allows you to actually hack a bunch of public companies, and the only restriction you have is that you should probably tell them about stuff that you find. You should not tell them about stuff that is not issues in terms of security. You should tell them about security issues that you find, and you should not publicly post them until they've actually been able to validate it and stuff like that. And in return, you can actually get coffee cups, t-shirts, or money. And these marketplaces are like, they're actually doing the consolidation of this. So you know that these companies are used to communicate with researchers, and the companies knows that the researchers are used to connecting with the company. So it makes a lot of sense having this marketplace in between. And one company doing this really, really good is Spotify. One of the few Swedish company, I think it's like Spotify, Swedbank, and Boost.com. That is Swedish companies doing bug bounties today. And Spotify is awesome at it. So basically, if you find a vulnerability in Spotify, they have a way for you to actually communicate with them. So what happens is that you start looking for stuff in Spotify. You start looking at the web app. You start looking at the regular app. You start looking at all these assets that they have, and maybe you find something. And then you press, I want to submit a report to them. And you send the report, you show them what it's all about, and then you wait, and you see, like, okay, hopefully they're going to answer in 1 day. Sometimes it takes a week. Sometimes they never answer. Yeah, like, it depends on the case. And if you're lucky, you'll get an email back saying that you're going to get money from them. which is awesome. Like that's the best case scenario, because not only does that mean that you get the money and you get you get to tell that Spotify actually got help from you, they actually fixed the bug also, hopefully. And there's some stories to this. Like I've been doing this since then, and there's some fun stories. And I wanted to like show you examples of this. And this is like common examples are like you find a cross-site scripting and that's vulnerable and they fix it. But I wanted to talk about like more advanced stuff, or not advanced but different. So one example being a friend of mine called Ahmed. He had a vulnerability in Twitter ads. Twitter ads being you sign up with your credit card on Twitter ads, and then you make tweets that you want to advertise out to other people that is not following you, but you want them as clients or customers or whatever. And what happened when you added a credit card is that the credit card become a number inside their database. 1, 2, 3, 4 for my credit card, 1, 2, 3, 5 for your credit card. And he added 2 credit cards on 2 different accounts, and he tried to delete the other account's credit card just by guessing that number. And it turns out he could delete that credit card. Which means that since they were numeric, he could delete all credit cards. Which means no ads on Twitter, which is awesome. But like not awesome for Twitter, because they will probably like not like that at all. So they patched it in a few hours, and they paid him a good bounty for it. Another example which shows how nice it could be when you chain stuff together is another friend called Bitquark. And he actually approached Oculus, which is now owned by Facebook. And what he did was also similar to what Ahmed did is you as a user on the Oculus platform could add yourself to a team that you owned. But it turned out you could add yourself to other teams as well. And team with the ID number 1 being the administrator team. And being in the administrator team means that you had another tab called the admin panel. And being on the admin panel, you had a file upload that said, upload PHP file, please. And uploading a PHP file on that server meant basically that he could do whatever he wants. Like remote code execution means that you can take over whatever you want. You can steal a database, you can steal the source code, you can shut down the service, you can modify the service to do something else, you can inject some silently reporting stuff so he can actually monitor stuff. Like you can do a lot of bad things. And Facebook it was actually Oculus, just before they were acquired, paid him $25,000 for it. Just to show that the chaining of these events actually made it so much severe than just basically just being able to add yourself in another team. I myself has found some interesting bugs, but I tend to go on the like humorous side on it. So what I did was I used a brown shaver to inject some JavaScript into a website. Which was kind of funny, because the only way I could actually get some HTML going in there was by using an Amazon product. And the first Amazon product, if you Google Amazon product, brown shaver has done some really good SEO there. So the brown shaver comes up as one of the first products, and I could use that one, and I could also append some data into an XML that turned out into HTML. Because it turns out that if you show an XML on a website, you can have a little attribute on one of the nodes that will make the whole XML render as HTML, which is kind of cool. So that made the XML that was supposed to be an XML suddenly turn into an HTML page and run the JavaScript. And also bypassing all these restrictions that there are. Kind of cool. Another thing was that I was also approaching Oculus, but I did it in a different way. And the thing was, I found a really lousy bug on Oculus. This was back in the days when Swagger wasn't that good. It's better now. It's not perfect, but it's better. And what Swagger had back in those days was that if you know about Swagger, you can like, it visualizes a JSON more like as a UI. It's Swagger UI, basically. So what happened was that if you inserted a XSS payload, like run this JavaScript, in the like load this JSON input box, it will run the JavaScript. But the thing is, you can't tell, like, if you're going to attack someone, you can't tell them, like, could you just copy this little text and insert this into this little box on this little page and press this little button? Like, you can't tell anybody. So I built a little game about it. Like, I made someone go to my page and say, like, move the red box to the green box and just click the yellow box, and everything will be fine. because there's a hidden iframe, transparent iframe, having the payload inside the red box, moving it over to the input box, and then pressing the yellow box, which is the button. Triggering the JavaScript on a totally complete other different website, which is awesome. So I sent this to Facebook, and I said, game time, guys. Now we're gonna game. And they answered me. I've never had that fast of answer from Facebook. And they say to me, like, we have, like, this was an incredible game. We haven't spent any work done that has been done. Like, we love it. And they also paid me money for it. Like, this extremely stupid bug. But just because I showed them that, like, if you're creative, you can actually do something. And they were like, can you add music the next time? We want MIDI, for God's sake. Use MIDI. Another thing, I was having a talk at outside in Cambridge. I think it was 1 year ago or something. Yeah, 1 year ago. And it was a Python conference. And before going to the Python conference, I was like, I should probably do some research about Python, because they're gonna expect me to actually know something about doing web apps in Python. So I started digging around, and I was finding, like, there was a regular web framework called Flask. And Flask was, at that time, I think it's still on there, so as soon as you run Flask, which is an easy way to do web apps in Python, they have a worksug debugger. I think it's done by Puku or something. Worksug debugger works really, really cool. Like, you can, if you have the debugger on, you can, on the website, if you get an exception or something, you can actually run some JavaScript, some Python code on the website, and looking at, like, what type of values did my properties have. Like, you can actually inject JavaScript on the website directly, which is like remote code execution as a service. And if you read the documentation about this actual thing, it has bold letters saying this must never be used in production. And this is kind of stupid, because it doesn't say must never be used online, because that's the problem. So, but still, the first thing that you see when working with security, and you see that you should never do this, you always look after the ones doing it. And there's a lot of search engines that is not working exactly like Google. So there's a search engine called Shodan, which what it does is basically, it doesn't care about the content, about the web page. What it does is just scanning all the IP addresses and all the web hosts it has, and scanning all the ports. And what it gets back, they save it, and you're able to search for it. So you have a huge database of, like, the headers of web pages and all these things. And it turns out that worksug debugger actually injects a header saying that worksug is running. So what happens is that I searched for it, and the one company showed up called Patreon. And Patreon, if you don't know about Patreon, Patreon is a crowdsourced, crowdfunding website for YouTubers. Basically meaning, if you're a YouTuber and you have 100,000 subscribers, you can tell them to pay $1 a month. And if all of them do that, you get $100,000 a month. Awesome, like, they pay little, he get much. And Patreon, back in that day, had a bug bounty program that I knew about. And Patreon, I saw directly, like, due to the SSL, I saw this was actually owned by Patreon. And this title says we're vulnerable to this thing, because as soon as you go inside that web page, we have an exception due to a SQL query that will give you a console, an input box, enter your Python code in here. The thing was, this host didn't work. It actually didn't work, which was, like, good for them. So when I saw this just before the Python conference, I was like, that's awesome. They probably already know about this. I won't report it. But I will add a ping to this host, meaning it will tell me as soon as it's online again. And I waited a couple of days, and suddenly this host starts responding. And I went to it, and it presents me with this big input box, just like, Python code, give me Python code, which is super bad. And I told them, I emailed them, like, urgent, important, like all these spam headers. I sent them all. And they waited 4 days to answer me. And they answered me, oh yeah, we know. We're gonna move that away. And I'm like, holy shit, but yeah, we know. Remote code execution, we know. Stupid thing. And I was like, fine. like, you know about this already. It's crazy that I had to actually look for, like, it's open in a search engine, and you know about it and you don't fix it. What should I do? I can't do anything else. I waited, I think it was 5 or 6 days or something, and I look at Hacker News, and the #1 story is that Patreon got hacked. And 2.2 million members was released, their source code was released, all their internal messagings was released, all information about everything was out there. And they put out a statement on their website saying, we got hacked. And they also say that we got hacked due to a debug environment being online. They didn't say any like specific details about it. That was it. And I was like, this sounds too familiar. And I looked at the date of the time that they got breached, and it was 5 days after I reported it to them. That means that I was actually 1 day after they responded to me that they knew about it. And I was like, okay, so if the hack actually took place 5 days after I reported it, that means that they did not really care about this being online. And also, since this stuff is publicly available, that means that somebody is actively looking for this, hacking all these companies, Patreon being one of the probably easiest ones because they were exposing this so publicly. So I was like, what should we do? We have a vulnerability, somebody is abusing it, we are the only ones knowing about this vulnerability, and somebody else knows about it and they fucking hack stuff with it. So we put up the blog post, how Patreon got hacked, even though they did not respond to us because they had a war room for their press to handle all the pressure from them. And so we put up this because we were so certain that this was actually the bug. And they got so, like, that got very published because they were like, okay, so they were warned 5 days before? Like, what the hell? What are you doing? And they actually came back to us after that and confirmed that this was actually the case. Obviously, maybe we actually helped them to actually figure out why they were hacked. And they told us that they were happy to be the company being slammed at because of this, just because there were so many other companies being affected by it. So they were fine with us getting out the details. And it turns out also that Workzog added a little thing where you're not able to run the commands if you don't know a pin code. And the only way to know the pin code is to actually be on the other side, starting the Flask app, which is awesome. And you have like 3 tries and then it locks down completely. So that actually was, as we see it, the best way of actually getting that out. Like full disclosure, just go out with it because somebody was actually abusing it. Another thing was another company having the same vulnerability. Probably know about this company. So Uber. When we started looking for this vulnerability, we found that Uber had the same thing. Turns out that Uber handles those things a little bit different than Patreon. Because I actually pinged the marketplace, the HackerOne marketplace, just like, can you poke Uber? Because they have a thing that they should probably care about. And this guy actually was at the gym and just ran home. Like, I so much want to see that frames where he's like, But you don't know about Uber being hacked, right? So obviously, hopefully, they haven't. And hopefully, we were actually helping them out with this, which is awesome. And they also paid me $5,000 for it. I think Patreon, like, here's $100, thank you so much. And I was like, this feels bad in my mouth. Here's a picture of a guy with a white hat. Also, a couple of years ago, Google had a vulnerability that two of my friends found. It's like an XML entity, external entity vulnerability. And what it means is that if you upload an XML to Google and Google parses this in an insecure way, you can actually make Google show local files on their server. You can make it do a lot more like worse stuff, but that's like one of the first indications that something is completely wrong. So what my friends did, what they could see was like, there's a file called etc password, which is like one of the best proof of concepts that something is vulnerable to this sort of attack. And they were able to do that on google.com. And they told me during this night that they did this. And I was like, what is XXE? I need to learn, like inject skill. And I did that, and I tried the same thing on the same service. So what happened was then, and then I'm like, that's how they did it. But the problem was that Google also saw that I did it. And they answered them like, okay, so you're reporting this to me, and suddenly someone else is doing the same thing. Are you actually exposing this to other people? Should we be worried? And they're like, no, we work together, we're friends, like, here's his IP, here's his email address, here's everything, here. Like, they gave me all PII about me, like, that they could. They paid them $10,000 for this vulnerability. And the thing was, when I saw this, and I was like, I know now how to test for this. I tested everything at Google, like all the things that had XML, I tested them out. I just want to do the same thing, and I just want to like find that thing. And I started working with a place called Google Marketplace. They closed that down for sure. But Marketplace back in those days was that you upload an XML file explaining about your app. So you said that my app is this, the URL to my app is this, and then you're able to put it up on the marketplace and you can sell it to Google, like people using Google for businesses. And I started poking with it, and it gave me funky errors, but it didn't give me anything like really vulnerable. But I was just poking at it one night, and suddenly I get an email from Google. Hey man. Are you looking for XFC in a Google Marketplace? Is that you? And I'm like, yeah, should I stop? Yeah, we filed a bug for it. For what? What did I do? Like, I can't ask them, like, what did I do? Can you tell me what I did? I didn't do that, so I was like, okay, I waited, just silently waited. And like a week later, they're like, $5,000, here you go. Like, I don't know why. I still don't know why. And I was like, this is tainted money. I need to do something with this money. It turns out that Google is actually matching if you're donating the money to something. So I'm like, Doctors Without Borders, here's $10,000. Which was kind of cool because they were like, who is just with a credit card sending us $10,000? So they were actually starting to hunt me down, trying to figure out who I was, why Google was giving money, saying that it was my fault. Like, has Google been hacked by this guy? And they like, yeah, we have. Like, yeah, but what? It was a very confusing email conversation, I must say. But Doctors Without Borders got $10,000, and that was good. Yeah, thanks. And when you do a lot of this stuff, it turns out that you can get in some good and special places. And one of these places was last year. Last year I was at DEF CON, which is like the biggest security conference in the world. And back then I was meeting a company, doing like a business meeting with old fashions, drinking. And we're like, shouldn't we do anything? Shouldn't we like take hackers, do something cool? And they were like, yeah, let's do that. We have a suite. Can you bring a bunch of people to the suite? We put a multiplier on the bugs that you find for us, and we do a cool thing. So they rented a suite in MGM Grand last year. And we were 7 or 8 people getting in there on the evening. They were offering us food, music, and drinks, and to hack them. And we were sitting there just trying to figure out good ways of hacking them, and I found 6 bugs. I went home with $51,000 for that. And the cool thing was that this company, in the end of this night, they came to me, went to me and said, Frans, can I shake your hand? Why? Thank you so much. And I'm like, you just gave me $51,000 and thanked me for it. What happened? But it turns out it was so important for them, so they actually did this year as well. So they had a big event. It was 3 companies this time, Snapchat, Zenefits, and then Panasonic, doing a big event on a sweet 3-day night event. I came 5th place this year. Next year I will be number 1. Congratulations, Mark. Thank you so much.